Alrighty. So, we're going to be... let me just adjust this. Alright, so we're going to be doing a little... changing course a little bit from where we left off last time. We did some set design stuff. I've got some props, and this is for a different scene for a different project. Yeah. So there are some props that we need to bring in. Now, I've been in the process of going through some training on Blender. I've used Blender here and there very lightly for quite a few years, but you know, my knowledge of it is it's always like fumble around and finally figure something out. That's my MO in Blender. So I'm currently in the process of going through some through a training course that is starting to fill in some of those gaps. I've not completed it yet, so there's still quite a bit of FAFO, fumble around and find out, right? So, but I think I've got enough of a grip on it to where I can do some of the basic stuff that we're going to do today. So, yeah, we're going to be bringing in some props. These are items that I found that are free on Sketchfab. And some of them are in formats that I need to bring into Blender first. And some of them are just ready to bring straight into Character Creator 4, which is where really the best place to bring in props into the iClone, for use in iClone. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's start with the first one here, and it is an FBX model of a stack of stumps. So we can just drag and drop an FBX model right in here. We declare it as a prop. Let's see what it looks like. Okay. All right, you know what? What I should do, since sometimes when you bring in models, I'm going to delete that. Sometimes when you bring in models from an outside source, they haven't necessarily been scaled in a way that's useful within iClone. And we need to make sure that however we save this, that it's going to scale properly with iClone characters, you know. No, we don't want to save. So what I like to do is in Character Creator 4, I just bring in just one of the stock figures. That's going to give me a sense of the scale so that when I bring in then the prop model, it'll be alongside that character and I'll be able to scale it appropriately. All right, so we've got the good old Kevin model in here. So now if we drag in our prop, we'll see if this has been scaled appropriately. And if not, that's easy to adjust here. Okay, it is way, way too big, right? So we're going to select that. We're going to go down to its scaling. We're going to lock X, Y, and Z. Let's use the scaling tool here. We can do it visually. Get this down. So this is a stack of tree stumps. Yeah. So that looks pretty good. That looks like pretty good scale. We're going to assume these are not small trees. Sorry if that audio interferes there. Okay. Maybe we'll bring it down in scale just a tad more. Like so. Yeah, that's going to work well for us. So we need to now It's already brought in the textures, which is great. So we don't have to manually do that. Let's just double check and make sure. Okay, it only brought in the base texture. And we do have a normal map. That's part of the package they brought us here. So we're going to drag that right in here to the bump, and we're going to declare it a normal map. And I didn't really notice a big difference there, but you know, it's fine. Let's see if there are. This thing says internal ground AO texture. All right, so there's another texture here. We're going to drag it onto AO and see if. Okay, so that works. That works good. Added a little bit to the shader. The shader's not very complete. It doesn't need an opacity map, that's fine. It doesn't have a metallic or roughness map. And the default roughness in iClone, let's just see what happens if we mess with that. Because roughness kind of has to do with like a sense of, it comes off as like almost reflectivity or shininess. We want this to be fairly dull. Wood doesn't really reflect light. It's not that type of surface. So a nice and bright roughness map, I think, is going to be appropriate here. Okay. So we're going to hide Kevin from the scene for a moment. We'll hide all of his bits as well. We're going to take our prop here, and we're going to zero out, let's see, reset transform. Weird. Why did that do that? Okay, it's still the right size compared to Kevin. Alright, so the scale is okay. So we want to set this to the origin. I think that'll make it easier to deal with. So we'll set it to where the coordinates of the location of it are zeros. I think that's going to make it easier when we import it. And then we'll just kind of line it up here because it's going to take whatever picture we've got here. It's going to take that as the thumbnail when we save it as a prop. Go over to Content, Custom, Props, and Props. And let's see if there's a category that is appropriate for it here. Fences, grassy grounds, housing, outdoor decor. That seems to make the most sense, doesn't it? All right, we'll name it stack of logs. We'll copy that. And then we're going to save it as stack of logs. All right, I'm not sure if it's going to save it in the folder we selected or not. It sure should. But we'll be able to search for it and find it. Okay, it did. It put it in that folder. So stack of logs. That one was easy. So we can delete that from our scene. Let's just turn on shirt and pants for Kevin. We don't need to see his whole thing there. And let's move on to the next model. The next one, this is fun. Okay, the next one is a Commodore 64. That's a Blender model. Why don't we take care of, I think I want to take care of all the easy props. The ones that just drag straight in here, and then we'll do all the Blender ones together. All right. So, I dragged in, this is an exit sign. And you can barely see it there. It's very tiny. So we're going to have to scale this up quite a bit. Let's bring it up, scale 1000. And let's get it closer to Kevin here. Okay. Let's rotate it around. I'm not sure which is the front and which is the back without the textures here. But let's bring it up and then just bring it over for now. Make it easier to see what's going on. That's pretty close to the right size, I think. We can always adjust this in a moment. Right now, I am going to reset the scale, which is going to lock that in. So now this is the default size. And then let's see what we've got in terms of textures here. All right, so just a light and a dark base color texture. Okay, and it's two-sided, so it doesn't really matter which is which. So that's the light one. And there's the dark one. I don't really have much use for the dark texture, I don't think. The light one seems to make more sense. Alright, and that does seem like the right size. So I guess what we could do, we could save two versions of this prop. One of them the light, one of them the dark, just in case. That way we don't ever have to go back and import anything again. So we will hide Mr. Kevin. We'll take this and set it back to 0 for X. We'll leave it at this height of, let's call it 120. And then let's just get up nice and close with it. Okay. We'll go over to our content tab, save, and let's look at our categories of props here. Okay, dream home, fences, grassy grounds, housing. Might be housing. No, housing I think is actual houses. So let's just put this in the default category here. This is an exit sign. Light. Okay. You know where that dark image will come in handy is to make a glow texture for it. That's what that's for. It's not a different version of the sign. They didn't label things here. So we'll call that an exit sign. Let's go back to the textures tab here. If we go to glow and we bring this dark image here as glow, aha, that's what we want. Pretty crummy texture there. Should we fix that? I don't remember seeing that distortion before. No, it wasn't there before. So there must be something going on with this glow image. And it's on both sides. So let's fix that. To do that, we've got that material selected. We can launch our image editor here and let's see what's going on with it. Why is it looking like that? Isn't that something? There is no such distortion in the actual image. So whatever that is, it's some other type of artifact. Okay, self-illumination applies to the whole shader, and we don't want that turned on, not by default anyway. There's glow. We can adjust the glow strength. Yeah, that's a weird artifact there, and I'm not sure what causes it. If you know, drop me a comment and let me know what causes something like that. We're going to leave it as is for now. and just go ahead and get this prop saved. So this is our exit sign, and we'll save it as exit sign. That was a simple prop, very simple. It's basically just a cube with a texture stuck on it. And yeah. All right, we've got a lumber stack, and this is an FBX model, so good. All right, so let's go back to scene. Let's turn Mr. Kevin on. And yeah, get the camera out. Okay. This is a, if I remember right, this is a fairly large stack of wood here. Pretty high poly. So let's see what it looks like if we drag it in. It's FBX. It is a prop. Just waiting, waiting, waiting. Oh! That is quite large. So let's shrink it down to size and see how it lines up with Mr. Kevin. We're going smaller than we need to here right now, because this is like meant to be like a big pile of wood. It looks like it's really only going to work. I don't know. Which side is it meant to be viewed from, you think? I suppose it could be either. Can we create a plane? I know how to do that in iClone. I'm not sure. I guess you can't just easily create primitives in here like you can in iClone, so that's fine. Alright, so we need to move this back behind Kevin so we can kind of get a sense. And let's bring in all his business here. And basically, let's size it to where it looks proper when he's standing right in front of it. So we're going to scale it up. And I'm thinking like about a waist high stack. Maybe, yeah, maybe a tad less than waist high on average. Oh, it's tilted funny. That's why it looks weird. Huh. So we gotta correct it here. It certainly looks better. I really wish I had a floor reference here. Let's go into the content library and find a floor. Stage. I could bring in a Lightroom, I guess. I really just want a floor, though. Yeah, let's just bring in some floor here so we can see how it lines up with the ground. Okay, so yeah, you see how it's a little bit tilted the wrong way there? So we can... That looks more like it. And then we can bring it up a little bit too, I believe. Yeah. Now how's it look from this side? That's more like it. Okay, so we will bring it a little bit closer to Kevin. And then let's see how the scaling works now. That's about the right height that we want. Just a bit below waist level. And now that trash that's on there, looks a little, it looks better. So, let's go in here and we want to reset the scale. Okay, to lock this is the 100% size. And then let's do reset transform, which only seems to affect the rotate, not the move coordinates. But that's fine. Okay. So, let's hide Mr. Kevin. We're just going to hide our floor because maybe we'll need that for some other props as well. And then let's get a decent angle here for our stack of wood. Just for the thumbnail. Basically as large as we can make it fit without clipping the edges. Okay. So if we go to content, custom, this is going to be an outdoor prop. Outdoor decor, and we're going to call this thing stack of wood. And then we're going to save it as a stack of wood. All right, all right. We can get that out of our scene. Let's move on to the next. Vintage suitcase. This is FBX. It's a prop. All right, and let's get Kevin back in here. And boy, is that suitcase too big. So, kind of turn it to a similar angle as him. What's that end up being? We'll make it 90. Okay. And let's scale it to where it looks a little more appropriate compared to Mr. Kevin. Maybe it could be a little bigger than that if it's a full-on full-size suitcase. Yeah. That's about right. Let's drag it off to the side here so we can see it a little better. And it's lacking its textures, so we will bring those in. And we've got a full set of textures here, which is nice. So this is PBR. Let's see here. We've got... Is there more than one mesh in this? There is. There's suitcase, and then something called suitcase. ACC? I'm not sure what that refers to. So how we're going to figure that out is we're going to dial down the opacity of the main suitcase mesh here and see what's left. Okay, so it's all the metal stuff, all the handles and hinges and locks. Okay. So, on the main suitcase, we want to bring in this texture. Does that look right? It does. All right, then we've got a normal map. That gives it some sense of texture, some bumpiness. And what else we got here? ACC, suitcase. Okay, roughness and metallic and ambient occlusion. Okay. Then on the second mesh, we've we've got a texture for those things. Good. And a normal map for those things. And roughness. And metallic. Okay. That's looking proper now. Seems like an appropriate amount of shininess on things. It's kind of faded, but I think it's meant to look faded. Alright. And this isn't an animatable prop. It's just static. But it's something that I think will come in handy. Okay, so back to the scene. Let's hide Mr. Kevin. Select this. We're going to name it Vintage Suitcase. And we're going to go to the content folder. And this is just going to go in the straight up props folder. And we'll call it Vintage Suitcase. When you use models from SourceForge, or not SourceForge, Sketchfab, most of them are there, especially the free ones, they're there with, that you can use them for free as long as you credit the author. And when you're just going to use them in like a render or something like that, it's kind of, from some people's perspective, there's a little bit of gray area on whether or not you need to worry about crediting or not. I just like to do that because somebody worked hard on this. And so I like the idea of giving them credit. So I'll do that in the YouTube description most of the time, because like most of the stuff that I produce is short form and you don't have time for lengthy on-screen credits. In a full, full-length feature type production or a series or something where there's going to be extended credits, I would want to put them on screen as well. Anyway, you'll notice that I'm not worrying about credits when I'm bringing them in here, but wherever I've got these stored, I have created a text file where I went and captured all the credit info for the props. I captured it and save it with those. So when it comes time to make use of them in a production, I can go through and see, I can pull all the credit info here, and this is something that can really just easily be copied and pasted into the body of a YouTube video description, for example. And that satisfies the crediting requirements. If you want to do on-screen, that's an optional thing that, like I said, in my opinion, makes more sense on long-form productions. All right, so what's next? We've done the suitcase. We've got a restaurant welcome sign. Okay, so let's get rid of this and bring in our welcome sign. It's a prop. Okay, no textures on it yet. Let's bring back Mr. Kevin just to make sure this thing is scaled right. The scale looks perfect. And the orientation is okay too. Like we'll probably thumbnail it like so. Like that. All right, so we'll hide Kevin. And then we're going to bring in our textures. Okay, and there's just one mesh. And let's see what textures they gave us here. Okay, so we've got our base color texture. Oh, that's nice. So the only thing I'm going to change is let's just do that now. I'm going to swivel this around on the z-axis by 180 degrees so we can see the nice colorful one here. Actually, Actually, let's even make it like, what, like 150. Yeah. That's a good thumbnail. All right, the rest of the textures, or the rest of the shaders. So we've got the base color in there. They gave us a normal map, which will add a little bit of bumpiness, yeah, mostly to the wood stuff. We've got a roughness texture, and we've got an ambient occlusion texture. That's looking really sharp. Something I'm curious about is how hard it will be to update this menu. So we're just going to take a moment and just peek at that. Okay, so if I was going to update what's on the sign, I'd have to do a little bit of fiddling around. I'd probably want to get, you know, some kind of a chalkboard background texture, and then I could put my own fonts and such on there, and I'd have to turn it on its side. That's a little bit of a pain. It would have been convenient to have this flipped 90 degrees, so that these two things are upright. But those things aren't always terribly easy to control, how the UV map gets laid out. This is nice efficient UV map. You see all these different wood textures here that are used in various places. So, okay, so this is our restaurant sign. We're going to save that as well, just under regular props. Restaurant welcome sign. Why not? Okay, and then we will save it and we'll name it that as well. All right, what's next? All right, that one needs Blender. Okay, so we'll get rid of this. Let's bring in our crate. It's a prop. Contains two meshes. Do you want to break them up into subprops? No. Okie dokie. That thing's huge. If we bring Kevin back in here, we probably won't even see Kevin. He's dwarfed by it. He's in here somewhere, I think. So let's select our crate and let's bring it down to like 10% of its size. Okay, now we can at least see what's going on. We'll select Kevin here and home in, and then select the props. Now, this is interesting that there's two of them in here, and that's not necessarily useful, but let's go ahead and get things scaled. So these are crates. Okay, so one of them, they're two separate items here, and one of them is missing a slot and one of them's not. So ideally, I'd like to save those as two separate props. All right, let's bring in our textures. Textures. Okay, so there's two different crates here. Crate 1. Here's the diffuse map. Alright, so that's crate 1. Here is that one's normal map. And it's ambient occlusion map. Okay. That's actually all there is. So then crate 2, diffuse texture, normal map, okay, and ambient occlusion. And once again, I'm going to go in here and the surfaces don't look too shiny, but I'm going to go ahead and I didn't mean to open the thing up. Let's close that. We don't need it. We just want to alter the texture a bit, and we're going to set these to a brightness of 50. And same thing for this one. I just really want the texture, I want the surface to be rather dull if light shines on it, not reflective like a metallic or glassy surface. The roughness map seems to have something to do with that. The metallic map is all black, so it's not going to be giving off true, you know, reflectivity like glass or something, or you know, marble. Okay. So we've got those now. Now what we've got is we've got a mesh here, or we've got a two-part mesh. I wonder what would have happened if, when prompted, when I was bringing this in, if it asked to split them. I don't think it would have made it into two separate objects. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to go here to create one. How do we do this? We don't want to merge the prompts. Okay, I think we want to take these meshes and convert them into sub-items, which will make them, it should separate them. So let's try that. Sure if that's what we wanted to accomplish or not. We don't get that option here. Create sub-item, so I don't think that's quite it. Alright, so this may not be the ideal way to do this, but it's what I'm going to do. And that is, well, can I delete this? No. This is a read the friggin' manual moment. Alright, so I'm going to do kind of a cheat here. And that is, we're going to just hide the part of the mesh that we don't want to see. Especially since this is such a low poly object. It's no big deal to do that, really. So then the other thing that we want to do is we want to move the pivot. Which is on this main panel here. Let's move the pivot to more like the bottom center of that first box. Yeah?
Move it along. Nothing to see here.
Okay. We've edited the pivot. Let's reset the scale fine. We're gonna hide Mr. Kevin.
Just get out of here, will you, please? Leave me alone.
And there we go. We've got crate number 1. We'll go to content, custom, just the regular props folder works fine. Save. Stop. With that. Crate 1. Save. Wooden crate 1. Okay. Now we can go in here. We've got crate 2's mesh selected. We're going to turn its opacity back up. And we go to crate 2 and turn its opacity down. Yeah? And then we can edit the pivot again. To put it at the bottom center of this one. Okay. It's messy, and if I remember or take the time and research how to split these things out properly, Warlord did a good tutorial on this. It's just slipping my mind right now. But this is going to be crate number 2. So we'll call this wooden crate 2. Copy it, come over here, we hit save, wooden crate 2, boom. Done. All right, and then we've got a wooden fence. And this is FBX, so cool. So let's delete this. Let's bring in our wooden fence as a prop. It looks awful tiny there. Let's bring in Mr. Kevin. Yeah. You think maybe the fence is a little too small? So we grab the fence. Let's scale it up at least 1,000. Yikes, that's not even close. Unless we're doing like Gulliver's Travels or something. So we want it probably 5 times taller than that. That's not even enough. Okay, that's getting pretty close. That is getting pretty close. Let's say, let's do it manually here. We want just a little bigger than that. Yeah. That is a good height. Okay, reset the scale to lock that in. Let's rotate this around so it's at an angle that makes some sense. And then we can hide Kevin. There we go. All right, back to the fence. It brought in, okay, it brought in base color and bump map. Those are the only 2 textures. But you know what? That's really all this needs. It is a little shiny on top though there. You see that? It's a little shiny. Let's go to our roughness map. Yeah, you see that? That's a really good example of when roughness is too light. You see how reflective it is? That shininess, that's what we don't want. It's wood. It makes no sense. You know, unless it was covered with some kind of a glossy primer or glossy finish or something. It's not. It's just wood. So, yeah, probably in the 50s. Yeah, so it still reacts to the light, which is good, but it's not too much. Now, I'm not certain about if the slats are the right distance apart here, but we're going to assume that they are for now. Because if we have to edit that, then we have to undo, well, we have to not do what we did here and bring it over into Blender and see about moving some of these panels closer together and whatever. If I have to do that, I'll do it. It depends on the scene, but for now, this works as a fence. Okay. We will call it wooden fence. Go to content. We're going to call this an outdoor decor. And copy that text. Save. Wooden fence. Okay.
So dawn goes down today.
So that's good. So now we've got a few remaining props. And that's going to be in Blender. Alright, so first let's get rid of the default Blender objects there. And let's bring in this item. See if you can recognize what this is. You cheat if you look at the thing. Okay, so this is weird. Oh, is it still loading? Blender's kind of seems to be frozen up on me, so maybe it's still loading. Maybe this is a really high detail model. It's not that big. Okay. There we go. Look at that. It pulled in the textures for me automatically. Even for all the cables and stuff. Got stuck there a little bit. I've just been working in CC4 and I'm trying to use those movement controls here. Blenders are different. Okay. That looks really good. That looks fantastic. I don't think there's anything that needs to be done with that. So the only question would be, do we want it, these things are split out into separate items, so we could import these things as separate pieces, but for the purposes of what I'm going to use it for, there's not any benefit to that. This setup works just fine. Yeah. Works really well. Okay, so if we go to File, Export, FBX, and we'll just save it to this same folder here, I think. Commodore 64, Path Mode, Embed. We want to embed the textures. So copy. There we go. Limit to selected objects, visible objects, active collection. Object types. there's no camera or map in this. But we basically want the mesh. The mesh and other, right? There's no armature, that's an animation thing. Scale 1.0 is fine. I think that's good. Okay. Oh, there is something here. What is that, a camera? Well, it's not selected. I think we're okay. So if we go back over to Character Creator, let's try bringing this in, see what happens. Object contains 8 meshes. Would you like to break them up into subprops? We're going to say yes on this and see if that helps us in terms of... Oh, look at that. Isn't that something? Man, that looks really good. Okay, let's bring in Kevin and see how our scale is looking. Okay, it's slightly big. Okay, but here's the thing. Where I'm going to use this, I may not have any characters in shot at all, so the bigger might be beneficial. So let's save one version of it really large. So if we go to, let's hide Kevin. Let's get up nice and close here. Okay, we've got it selected. We're going to call it Commodore 64 large. Okay, go to Content, Custom. Let's just put this in the root props folder and save Commodore 64 large. Okay. Now, before we do more here, let's bring Kevin back in. And let's see if we can scale this down to something that makes a little more sense. In case we want to have a version, we'll have a version of it that people can interact with. That's still a little big, I think. So, all right, so we're going to take Kevin here. We're going to move him. And we're going to rotate him around. And then let's adjust his pose. And we're just going to bring his arms up. Like so. And like so. And we'll turn his wrists inward. That gives us something to compare this to scale-wise. Okay, so now if we just bring this up off the ground, get it near his hands, see that? That's going to give us a sense of what we're scaling to. Alright, so let's scale it down. that's pretty darn good right there. Yeah. All right. Let's hide Kevin. Go back to this. We're going to put it back on the ground. Center our shot. And there we go. And this is just going to be called Commodore 64. Okay. Go back to the content folder. Boom. Save as new Commodore 64. Okay. So let's what do we do here? I guess we can select all and delete. Delete that too. Delete that too. Actually, let's just start a new project. Don't save. Okay. All right, what is next? We did the exit sign, we did the lumber stack. We've got a room here. I'll save that for last because I'm not even sure that I need that. We did the suitcase, we did the welcome sign. We've got a wheel, which is a collada model, DAE format. That's something Blender can help us with as well. So let's copy this. Let's get rid of everything that's in the scene. And then import collada, paste our path here. And let's open that up, see what's going on. Okay, it's very small. So let's scale it. Scale it up a bit more. And it really needs to be grab Z-scale. Needs to kind of be like so. Actually, you know what? It needs to rotate on the x-axis like so. We'll make that 90 degrees. We can set this to 0. 180, that's good. Huh. It's not quite right, is it? It's going to be laying on the ground. And actually, it needs to flip around. So let's do rotate on the x-axis, flip it all the way around. Let's look at it from the side. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And then grab it on the z-axis. Bring it down like so. Okay. We're good there. Now it did not bring in textures. Because there's some tread and all that on the real tire. But what I think I'm going to do is just export this as FBX, and then I can do the texturing inside Character Creator. Now there's two different wheels here. Okay, so the tire and the wheel hub, or the hubcap, the wheel part. We want both, but it's nice that they're separate meshes. All right, so we select everything, and then we go to File, Export, FBX. We'll go ahead and bring the textures, even though I don't think there are any textures. We can export everything in the scene, that's fine. And we say Export FBX. We want to put it in the same folder as we found it. So we can paste that folder right here. And let's call it wheel. Okay. Back over here. Delete our C64. Let's bring in our wheel and see what we're looking at. Prop. Contains two meshes. Break them into subprops. Yeah, why not? And it's big. It's real big. Alright, so let's bring it down to about 10% size. We'll bring in Mr. Kevin. He's got a weird pose. Let's take care of that. Just reset him. And then reset him. Good. All right, so our tire here needs to be a little bigger than that. A lot bigger than that, actually. Should be pretty chunky. That's maybe a little too large. Yeah, it's a big wheel. We could scale it a little differently than that if we want to later. For now, let's just put our focus on that. Okay, we'll hide Mr. Kevin. Back to the wheel. Let's look at our texture situation. Okay, so it really didn't bring in anything, but that's fine. I think we're going to be okay. Just let me see. We've got two different things here. And fortunately, this person named their textures in a helpful way. So we can go here for the main tire texture. This is the ambient occlusion. This is the metallic, which to me just looks black. This is the roughness map. And the bump map is pretty significant. Okay, so we're starting to see some treads now. Yeah, and even the imprint. All right, now it's starting to look like a tire, isn't it? What else we got here? Everything else is related to the trim. So let's switch over to that mesh. And let's take care of the trim. This is the base color. This is... Did I hear that Netflix is making a documentary about Vince McMahon? No, I did not. He's had a... Okay, from Tiger King. Yeah, that was very popular, wasn't it? I didn't watch Tiger King, but I have a lot of friends who did, and they kind of, you know, really got hooked on it as a good show. Vince has had an interesting life, that's for sure. Not without a little controversy. His story, I'll bet, will be very fascinating. Metallic. That means it's going to be really shiny. Here's the roughness. And the normal map. Thanks for coming by, Corinth. Are you a big fan of wrestling yourself? It's a very gold-colored hubcap, isn't it? I wonder what happens if we tone that color down. Yeah, that's too extreme. It can have a little bit of gold tint to it. I like that a lot better. It's nice and shiny. I wish the tread was a little bit more well defined, but frankly, this is just very realistic looking tread. Like it's been worn down a little bit, I think. That is going to suit our needs perfectly. Yeah, I can see why. And it's an interesting subject too. The Vince is an interesting subject. I followed wrestling in more of like the classic days, I guess. I mean, I grew up around it amongst the the really old stuff. And of course, Hulk Hogan and all of that. And then I've lost track of what they named it over the years, but there was, for a while, it was originally WWF and then WCW. I remember being really entertained by Stone Cold. Kinds of Kindness. Yeah. I have not seen it. I think it's my son who recommended that one to me. Refresh my memory what that one's about. Kinds of Kindness. Or who's in it. We'll call this one Big Wheel. How about that? Big Wheel. All right, moving on to our next one here. We already did wooden crate and wooden fence. We've done the restaurant welcome sign, the vintage suitcase, the lumber stack, the exit sign, the stack of tree stumps. So the only thing left is this. It's called Secret Area 52 Room, and I can't even remember why I grabbed it. But it's a Blender one, so let's open it in Blender and see what we're looking like. So we go to New Project. Don't save. We'll get rid of everything here. Copy this path. Latest film from director Yorgos Lanthimos. Emma Stone, Willem Dafoe. Okay. Jesse Plemons. Love his work. Okay. Yeah, it's... I can't remember. I know that I've seen the trailer for that, but I can't remember. I can't remember it. But I know that it's getting some good attention. So I'll probably be back on here streaming again on Saturday at this same time between like 4 and 6. So if you get a chance to, if you're free, stop by and I'd love to hear your take on the movie. I'm sure I won't get to watch it before then. So. But I feel like I've heard some good things, and not just online stuff. Absurdist anthology film tells three-way tale. Okay, yeah, then it probably was my son who recommended that to me, because that sounds like something that's right up his alley. He's quite interested in more complicated story forms, I guess is the way to put it. So something like that would really intrigue him. What in the world Is the... Oh, okay. It's got some screens and some animated... It's a computer room. And it's broken up into a bunch of stuff. But there's not that many textures, so it must be grouped nicely for meshes. Okay. This is interesting. So this is a whole set. So let's just export it as FBX. And we'll just call it Area 52 again. Ride to Hell Retribution. No, that title doesn't stand out to me. Motorcycles involved, by chance? It sounds... It's evoking that image, even though I don't think I know anything about it at all. Man, this one's taking a long time to export. What's going on? Ah, there we go. Wow, it's a lot smaller. It's a lot smaller file. Look at this. The Blender file's 86 meg, 85 meg. The FBX is only 7, so it must have embedded textures. Alright, trying to... What is... How do we change the render mode? This is where my Blender training is... I am not a Jedi yet. Viewport shading... Okay, let's try rendered. No, let's try... It's okay, it's trying to render it. Doggone it. Okay, it does have the textures embedded. Holy cow. Man, that looks good in Blender, doesn't it? Good Lord. Man, with that lighting. Woo! That's pretty. Really nice job on this model. Man. It's an action-adventure biker video game set in the late 60s. It's garnered a reputation as one of the worst games of all time. Wow. Stuck in development hell and ended up being released in 2013. It doesn't sound like an awful premise. But apparently I'm taking it, they didn't execute it very well, huh? It's a decent idea, like for a game. I can see, I'm seeing an aesthetic there that would be very, very cool, but apparently they butchered it. I appreciate the warning. I'll be sure to avoid that one. Thank you. All right, so let's try exporting this again. We're going to select all. And then we're going to export FBX again. But we're going to remember to export the textures with it. Batch mode. Okay. We don't need the camera or the lamp or the armature. Alright. And let's name this one with texture so we know which is which. This will probably end up closer to the original size. So this is going to take a minute. Ride to Hell. Retribution. Broken across the board. Low-res graphics, awful voice acting, sloppy gameplay, off-the-rails plot. So, oh, sex scenes. Oh, that's great. That's great. There's two motorcycle games that I remember, but these are very, very old school. One was one for PlayStation, and boy, I can't remember the name of it, but it was basically, it was kind of like Need for Speed, but you were on motorcycles, and you could actually, it was a motorcycle racing game with combat. You could actually hit the other riders, and the other riders were trying to hit you. Can't remember what the name of that game was. It was very popular. And then the other one is for PC, and it was an adventure game. I think it was LucasArts, called Full Throttle. It's this very stylized, had a look of like a cartoon or an anime or something, adventure game. That game was awesome for its time. Doesn't hold up great now, but I think it's available like to play like with an emulator or something, but pretty cool. Alright. It's finished, and now it's the proper size. So we're back over here. This is a big one, but let's bring this into Character Creator and see what it looks like with embedded textures. The cool thing about this is that even though I'm bringing it in as a prop, but it's so large and so complete that I won't really have to bring much else into this scene if I use this as a prop. It's the whole room. 207 meshes. You want to break into subprops? I'm going to have to say yes, because there's some animatable bits in there, and I think if I tell it to merge it all, then we won't be able to animate those later. Apparently they tried to sell it with a 160% discount. How does that work? Were they trying to pay people to play the game? How do you discount it more than it's worth? That's funny. So bad it got removed from Steam. I'll tell you what, that's shocking. Mainly because of some of the stuff that I've stumbled on that is on Steam. So yeah, it sounds like this one was legendarily bad. Did you buy it? Did you plunk down any money for it? Okay. I think it's in, and it's really big. Is it? I can't see anything. There it is. Final texture. Alright, we're going to have to shrink it down. Oh, okay. I'm just looking at the backside of it. So if we were to rotate it around 180 degrees. And then let's make Kevin visible. It may have been scaled properly. Look at that. Hey. That's scaled pretty well. He's in the floor a bit, so you can't see his proper height. It's maybe just a tad too big. Okay, well that's good at least. At least he didn't get roped in. Waste money on this. Doesn't that look a little bit too big? I'm trying to think, like a counter that you sit at is normally below the average, the waistline of the average person, right? He looks kind of like a kid. We need to scale this for adults, so let's bring it down just a bit. That's more like it, right? That looks more like the kind of height that it would be. The chair is a little bit of a higher chair. Why don't we pose him in a seating position and see if we can tell. If we go to animation and, well, let's just find sit. So, Karantz, what game are you playing now that you like? Let's just find a regular sitting thing. Here we go. Okay, let's move him into place and see if he seems to fit in this chair. That seems pretty good. It's just a higher chair, so we would have to adjust his pose to get him at the right height there, something like this. Something like that. Not too bad. His arms are a little weird, but you get the idea. A little bit of Z fighting going on right here. See that? Something's weird. What is that? Okay, look though, these things are independent objects. So are those. That's good. So maybe this thing is. What is this thing? Doggone it. There's some texture that's a little out of place there somehow. I have a feeling that's going to be really tricky to track down. Oh, man. Because there's like 273 meshes in this, it said. Holy cow. But I've got to track it down. That really spoils the shot if we leave that there. But yeah, in the Sketchfab preview of this, he showed it with, there's different things on here that are animatable. Now if we zoom in on this, so you see how, like if we go to rotate, it's rotating, but it's not on the axis of the object itself. So that would not rotate right. Yeah? It'd be really funky. But if we switch the rotate gizmo to local, it spins on its axis. So we can animate that in a shot. All these things can be animated that way, these wheels. So it's like this old school computer, and this is like a reel-to-reel thing. These can spin. And yeah, this is a whiteboard. But we could turn this into a screen, perhaps. Yeah, it's a separate piece. So we could retexture this and make it an actual video screen if we wanted to. Oh, I didn't notice the 1971 calendar. Yeah, so this is intentionally retro. Really nice level of detail on this. The post-it notes and all that. I love it. I love it. And all these things are separate? They are. So we could hide stuff that we didn't want in the shot. Really nice model. Okay, there's another errant texture there. Up here there's some Z fighting as well. Yeah, we've got to figure out what that is. So that's going to be, that's not something I'm going to try and do on the stream here. That would be horrendous watching. Because what I have to do, so we've got these two, I believe these two separate textures that Z fighting happens when the plane of the textures is just too close to one another, and so the graphics card doesn't know which thing to render, so it gives that Hall of Mirrors type effect. And somewhere along the way, something is imperfect in either the way this model was in Blender, or maybe something happened during the conversion. It could be a rounding error on a vertex or something. I mean, there's a number of different things that could cause it. At this point, repairing that is a matter of finding out what is this object here and hiding it. So we're going to real quick try a quick way and see if we have any luck, and if not, then what's involved is going through all of these meshes. Some of them we can probably eliminate, like this is probably not a cylinder, and they seem to have named the objects according to their size. So this is going to be the side of a cube, or it might be a plane. So, you know, maybe a third of these or more are eliminated from contention, but we've got to go through all of these through a process of elimination, find out which they are, and then basically see what happens if we just dial down the opacity of this to make it completely invisible. And for this, for 273 meshes, that's at least an hour. At least an hour. So, let's try the easy method and see what happens. If we go into Edit Mesh, we'll get kind of a wireframe view here, if this doesn't crash the program. And we want to try, let's try selecting by element.
So please don't ask me any questions, because there's no ulterior motive. I'm just really being nice to you. There's no other reason I'd say these things to you. I don't feel guilty about anything or anything
Okay, if we
like
go into that mode, maybe it'll be a little quicker.
Just don't ask
Vertex
me any
mode might be helpful. Maybe we can see what's going on here.
There is no other reason. Nah, I can't hear you. I've got my fingers in my ears. Stop asking me questions. No, this isn't weird at all. No, you're the one that's being weird. I don't know what you're talking about. Everything's normal.
Okay, so yeah, that's weird. There's like,
how I really feel. There's no other reason. It has nothing to do
I don't quite know what's going on.
like your best friend or anyone else. It's just there's nobody.
Back
No, I
to
didn't mean it
shaded
like that.
mode.
There's nobody but you. It's just there's no other reason. Can't I just say nice things? You're so unreasonable. I don't understand where this is coming from. I'm just trying to be nice.
It's not really letting me select anything. It's not letting me select stuff. Why is that? We can see the Z fighting there for sure. I better save this as a project, haven't I? Let's save this as CC4 prop repair. Alright, so let's start our focus here. Oh, that is really, really weird. It's not letting me select stuff. That is quite interesting. Something weird is happening there. If we go back over into Blender and we change to wireframe mode, we can compare it. And something went wrong here. Like I don't see those defects in this Blender version. But over here, yeah, there's something weird going on there. Doesn't seem to be an issue elsewhere. That is some weird stuff.
What was that? Did you feel something? Neither did I. Oh well. It was probably nothing.
Central table. Right, so maybe we have to narrow down the mesh before we can edit it. Can we select faces now? Oh, there's some faces. All right, well that mesh is a problem. So can we hide it? Ah. No. How about this one? No. What about this one? If we hide it, what happens? We lose that. It still looks like there's some fighting going on. There too. That's a real puzzler. Okay, if we go back to Blender, those issues are not there. Those issues are not there. So some kind of rounding issue. I'm just guessing, but that must be what happened. There are some extra vertices kind of hanging out there. I'm not sure what those are. But if we get rid of the lights, and then we select all, Alright, we're not going to save this then. I think I need to figure out the issue in Blender. Because once it gets over into CC4, I don't see how we fix it. So it's got to be something to do with the way that this was exported. Blender. Yeah. So if we go to File, Export, VX. Path mode, copy, batch mode off, include, scale 1.0, apply scalings, what if we change the scaling? Forward, forward. Let's leave that as the default. Are there any other settings that matter here? Operator presets, selected object, visible object, character collection. Alright, if we get rid of the camera, Okay, and we could try exporting just parts of this to see if we can get to the bottom of it. Okay, so let's go to export FBX. We'll do the text file again, copy, this is on. Let's just take all the types, because there's no longer any lamps or cameras. Custom properties, why not? Apply scalings, let's do FBX unit scale. And let's try exporting it. We'll launch CC4. This is the last thing I'll do today, I think. On Saturday, I'm not sure what we're going to do yet, but we'll probably have some characters to make. We've got some young people to make, got an old person to make, and we're going to start assembling some of these props here into their scenes, and probably continue some work on Louise, which is the one from my first stream earlier this week with the guy doing all the walking and stuff. Got some more set work and animation work to do for that. Okay, so let's open up an actor. We will open up closed. We'll do Camilla this time. Let's see if Blender is done with its thing. It appears to be. Alright, there's Camilla. And let's bring in our newly exported Blender set and see what happens. Hilda. I don't think so. Kind of sounds vaguely familiar, but I don't think that I've seen that one. There's Hilda. Oh, okay, an animated show. Yeah, no, I haven't seen that one. Wow, Rotten Tomatoes 100%. Unreal. Very cool. Geared towards a kid audience, I assume? Family audience, okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't gravitate towards that much until I had kids, and then, you know, regained an appreciation for stuff geared to that audience, and my kids have grown out of that now, and kind of, it's just not what they're interested in anymore. But you know, me and my wife still like family-oriented stuff. It's good. I'm glad it's out there. But Hilda, no, I haven't seen that.
Let's make a deal. I'll stop swimming
All right.
in your toilet. And you stop pooping in the pool.
Oh, because we've got Camilla selected. I was wondering, why is there no scaling?
Wouldn't that be
I see it now. Okay. So This, I think we determined that the scale on this is right, but it's just rotated around weird. Yeah, it's pretty right. But no, it's still got the problem. Look at that. Still got some kind of a Z fighting issue right there. Man, that's really a bummer. All right, so this is going to take a little bit more troubleshooting. Hopefully I'll get that solved prior to the next stream, because this is a set that I would like to use for one of the shots that I'm working on for this project. It's not a deal breaker or anything, but yeah, I may actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hide this character out of the shot, and let's take ourselves nice little screenshot of that. Or maybe a video. Let's just record a little clip here. Okay. And then if we go into Blender, let's record a little clip of that as well. Cool. I'll be able to use those clips to post this in one of the iClone user groups that I'm a part of, and just see if anybody can point me in the right direction. It's probably, I'll bet it's something that's run into pretty often for somebody who's done more of this than I have. So, all right, so we'll close the Blender, and we'll close this. That's going to wrap it for today. Oh, one more question here. All right, so there's currently 3 seasons in a movie. Considering that more content has been teased, who knows what else the series has on the horizon? Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting the opportunities that have opened up because of the streaming platforms. And Netflix, I feel like, led the way on this, and Amazon is doing more of it too. But there's content that there's shows and ideas and stories that in the days of either it's on TV or it's, you know, straight to VHS or something, they would just get lost, you know. But it seems like that it's not that there's no gatekeepers anymore, but the gatekeepers are changing. Like, who is the gatekeeper? That's changing, and more than a number of shows that, you know, maybe weren't satisfying the revenue standards of TV, but Netflix provided an opportunity to continue. I like that. That's cool. Now that means that some stuff that's not very good is also going to get funded and extended, but I think that's okay. I think I can live with that. You can always just, if you come across something you don't like, you just switch it off, right? So, and yeah, good shows like this one that you like with Hilda. It's nice that there are these new markets where it can continue to have life and entertain its audience, and Netflix certainly seems like the top of the heap on that as far as I'm concerned. Just because I think subscriber count wise, is anybody even close? I kind of doubt it. Maybe Amazon Prime inches up on them a little bit, but not really. I think Netflix is way out in front. So anyway, thanks for joining me, Corance. I really appreciate the conversation. I'm glad that my first stream I was just doing background music and I had to stop and text chat every time I wanted to talk. And while I liked streaming, I didn't like that part of it, and didn't feel like that's a very satisfactory level of interaction for you either. So I decided, okay, we're going to fire up the webcam and a microphone and see how it goes. So thanks for giving us some good stuff to talk about while I worked. And I'll be back I'm planning to be back on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to come tune in for a couple more hours, feel free. I'd love to hear how that movie that you brought up, Kinds of Kindness, is that what it is? If you end up watching that, would love to get your review on it, Corance, if you come back. So if not Saturday, then the next stream after that. So have a great evening. We'll see you next time.